Hey guys, what's up? So, I've been working through a few things these last few days, and I'm not ashamed to say that everybody has their times. But today, as I was trying to unravel some things and really figure things out, I started to think about what I want to be when I grow up. This has been a question for me for a very long time, mostly because, based on my life experience, I never really had time to think about it when I was a kid. I had to keep it moving. I never had the opportunity to just stop and be like, what do I really like? What do I really want? All of that stuff. But today I started to think about those things because it's important, from a perspective I won't really speak on right now. The point of it is that I started to realize that a lot of who I am is either a projection of myself or a coping mechanism. And I'm almost certain many people probably won't look at it that way, but hear me out, is really, really cool. So, most people think of projections as a negative thing, like, oh, you're just trying to, you know, put your view on someone else, and it's mostly a negative response. As for me, my projections are based on I don't want someone to go through what I've been through. So I'm willing to pretty much put myself on the line to make sure that no one else has to go through those things. And in doing so, I pick careers that will permit me to do that. Like, I've been very much so into things that pertain to therapy, counseling of some level. Um, I go and learn a lot about mental things like conditions, disabilities, things of that nature. Because I have in my mind, if I know how to address those things, if I know how to, um, what they look like, what they sound like, then I'll be able to help someone based on where I've been in my life, which I have very good intentions, but it's still projection. I'm pretty much saying, no, don't be like me. Let me learn how you cannot be like me so that I can help you not be me. Again, it's with all good intent. Um, I'm very adamant about saving people from myself. And so if I see someone who kind of reflects or shows different things that I can identify within myself, I make it my business to help them go the opposite way because in my mind, I know where that's going. I know what that can come into. I know what that can become. And so let me save the day. Then the other side of it is people say, do what you love, do what your passions are. I realize for me, at least, all of my passions are coping mechanisms. They're things that I do to keep myself centered, calm, guarded in like a bubble kind of way. Um, so um, my passions are my coping mechanisms. They're what I do to feel comfortable, to feel relaxed, whatever the case is. So when I decide to go based on what I would do for the rest of my life for free, I came to realize um, those things have kept me sane this whole time. Like, one of my coping mechanisms has always been reading books because when you read a book, for me at least, I'm escaping from the reality that I'm in at that time. Um, I'm living. I'm. I'm. I'm not living, but I'm watching someone else's life But the benefit of reading 1,000 books is that you learn reading comprehension, you learn how to identify and empathize with other people, because to care about a character that's fictional, more than likely that person can be in real life. And so you learn how to um, maneuver with people. You learn about yourself. You have something to identify with, because the thing about books, fiction, nonfiction, graphic, whatever, a human wrote it. So even if it's not pertaining to them specifically, it is still pertaining to a human experience. And even if you want to add dragons and robots and whatever the case is, those still can be identified in the real world. So reading is my coping mechanism. I never really thought about it that way, but music is a coping mechanism. Arts and crafts stuff are coping mechanisms. Writing is a coping mechanism. So it's like all of the things that I'm really, really good at is because I focused so long on them, because they help me free myself from whatever situation I was in at the time. Writing a poem, being a poet is a coping mechanism, because I'm able to express myself not so literally. I identify metaphors and similes and onomatopoeia and all the literary terms. I use them to craft my idea of how I'm feeling right now, without having to say in plain English, this is how I'm feeling. I'm using imagery instead. I'm good, but it's because it was a coping mechanism. So then it becomes a matter of, it's probably really deep what I'm saying, when you really look at life and when you really look at what you want and what you like. I would assume even loving to cook is a coping mechanism, because you got to eat, one, and two, food has been identified as a level of therapy for some people. Like when you binge eat, you do it to pretty much, you do it to distract your mind from whatever your circumstances, and so when you learn how to cook, you feel good, because food makes people feel good. You get good at it because it's how you escape from the negatives that you're feeling or dealing with, or whatever the case is. Working out is a coping mechanism. Anything that you do to relieve your stress, your anger, your anxiety, your depression, is a coping mechanism. And then if you get good, really, really good at it, and you can decide, this is what I want to do when I grow up, the reality is the people who are, in my mind, based on what I'm figuring out right now, the people who are really happy with their careers and really solid in what they're doing, they're more than likely working in their coping mechanism. And if they're working within their coping mechanism, it makes perfect sense why they would be happy all the time, because this is how they escaped. So if you're living your escape and your peaceful space and your happy place, yeah, of course, you're going to love what you do. You're going to love how you're doing it. You're going to love how it feels. Of course, because that's your coping mechanism. Projection is a scary thing for a lot of people. It's not always what you think. In a lot of careers, I feel, are projections of people not wanting to see themselves, or not wanting to see who hurt them, or see who, whatever the case is. But it's a projection of your personal experience that you're either avoiding or trying to cause someone else not to do. And that changes as you develop in yourself, as you grow. Your projection of yourself changes as you change. So if at one point, you were the type of person who needed someone to talk to, you go into a field where the people are talking to you because you're like, I want to be what I didn't have. Now you're in a space where you no longer need someone to talk to feel better. Now you're in a space where all you need is music. You might become unhappy in the field you're in because now talking no longer makes you feel good about what you're doing. People speaking to you on what they're doing may no longer make you happy because you no longer need someone to talk to be happy. It's, for me, it's a very, 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 very groundbreaking realization for myself. And I felt to share it because it could just be me and I'm cool with it, or it could not just be me and I'm cool with it. But it's the realization that at the end of the day, for myself, the realization within myself that what I've been doing, and because I was so curious about why do my career choices change so much? Like, what is it about? Why do I lose interest so quickly? Or why can't I stay focused on one thing? And it makes sense based on that. I change daily, maybe weekly, depending on the situation. It could be every day, it could be every week, it could be every month, it could be whatever. My arm looks so big, but it's okay. It's mine. Your passions, or my passions, pretty much developed through my coping mechanisms that I now feel this is what I want to do forever. But your coping mechanisms can change, and your projection of self can change also, because if you are working to grow, if you're working to understand and unfold who you are and why, if you're discovering your roots and what causes certain triggers and what causes certain behaviors and what causes certain perspectives, even as you unfold these things, you change. But there has to be a fundamental aspect to you that no matter what, this is what you want and love and need. And honestly, that's what I'm trying to figure out. And so when I started really writing out coping mechanism, I started writing out my thoughts and my feelings and my realities and my stuff. I realized, oh shoot, I've wanted to be what I wasn't. No, I said that wrong. I wanted to be what I didn't have to someone else. I wanted to be what I never saw for someone else. I wanted to be that person that stands in the gap so that another person could possibly not have to sustain the things I'm carrying around. It may not seem realistic, but at the same time, if you are what you've never seen, you can say at least someone didn't have to, or at least my experiences weren't in vain, because now I have the knowledge, the wisdom, the understanding, the emotional capacity, the mental capacity to explain this to someone else, so that if they're going through this, you know, they have me as a reference of what will happen, what won't happen, what can change, what can, whatever. So then it becomes a question of, do you pursue a career based on your projections of yourself? Will that be more appealing, or on your coping mechanisms? Because how you perceive yourself can change over time, and how you cope with things can change over time. And I'm oversimplifying it probably. But what is the gray area? I guess the gray area would be where they connect, where your projection and your coping mechanism connect, and figuring out where they connect is probably where you should be, because if they're connecting, they'll grow together. But it made sense to me, if that's really how we deal with life. It made sense to me why there's so many people, after years of being at a certain job, become miserable, or become unhappy, or become complacent, or become drained. Because when they went in as somebody they're not today. And therefore now they're trying to find a new purpose based on who they've changed, morphed into. Whether it's a negative or positive thing that's individual, that's subjective. But it makes sense. If you go in with this concept of projection, you want to save the world because of what you've seen. It doesn't even have to be your personal experience. It could just be what you've seen around you. You want to, make that better. If it's a coping mechanism, you go into a job, and your job is what makes you peaceful. But whatever is attached to that coping mechanism is healed. So you no longer need it, because that negative or positive, or if that experience is no longer attached to that mechanism, and you're freed, do you still need that mechanism? Do you now turn to your projections? Do you just make another mechanism? It's like there's so many different things. I'm almost certain I've confused at least one person, and I'm okay with that. This is why I like for people to respond to me. I feel now, as I continue to express this to you all, that the middle ground is the middle ground between a projection and a coping mechanism is, what do you do? For me, as I speak on this and really unravel, I realized that editing would be my middle ground. Why? Because reading and writing are coping mechanisms. Saving the world and providing information that will keep them, help them, or assure them somehow is my projection. Being an editor of documents and things, even video content or whatever, being an editor of content, mostly written though, would be my middle ground because I'm helping the writer and the public, because I'm like, look, this is good, but this might come off a little, harsh or whatever the case is. And I'm still reading. I'm still writing. So I'm able to combine my projection of saving the earth with good information or content and writing and reading, because those two things have helped me through my lifetime very immensely. And therefore, that would be my middle ground. And that would be where my passion would lie, because I'm able to do both. Technical writing would be my middle ground also, because it does the same thing as editing, but more direct. Because technical writing, if you all don't know, is pretty much those instructions that everybody hate. The policies, the procedure documents you get at your job. Yeah, there's a actual field for that. There's someone actually writing those things out. Sometimes it comes across a little crazy, but when done correctly, it gives you information, it guides what you have to do, it's telling you what to do to benefit yourself. And so technical writing would be my middle ground also, because I'm saving you from not knowing what you have to do. I'm giving you content, and I'm reading and I'm writing because I have to know what is needed. So I have to read what they need, and I have to write it, and then I have to edit it. So I think if any of you, like myself, have been confused about what they want to do when they grow up, growing up is not only about age. Every one of us has, and most people don't want to deal with that part, and it's cool, but I'm here to tell you, everybody, for the most part, has an inner child that has been hurt, broken, and then neglected, because we have to, as adults, deal with our responsibilities, so we don't make time for our inner child. But guess what? As long as that is not healed, you will not be fully happy, because it will always be a nagging sadness, which no one really wants to deal with, because it takes time to deal and no one wants to make time to deal. But guess what? The longer you take is when you have identity crisis, and when you have mood swings, and when you have, this made me happy, now it doesn't, what is wrong? You're burying the real issues. Getting to the root of who you are truly is the only way to be happy continually. And so if you're continually burying it because it's ugly, it's hurtful, it's painful, it's whatever it is, the longer you bury it, the worse it's going to show out in the wrong places at the wrong times with the wrong people, because that's where your triggers come from. If you get angry about something or frustrated or depressed or whatever, it's because your spirit is not healed completely. And your spirit can become or can be identified as your inner child, because your spirit is only as mature as your healing process. I'm going to say that again. Your spirit is only as mature as your healing process. And if you have not healed most of the stuff that has happened to you or tried to handle it, you're going to get triggered. You're going to get sad. You're going to get whatever the emotions are attached to your brokenness, because you have to heal those things to be full and whole. Period. So, I thank y'all for watching, because as you watched and as I recorded, I finally understood where I stand and why and how I can combine who I want to be for someone else, which is my projections, and what has kept me at peace, which is my coping mechanisms, and how I'm able to combine those two for a fruitful, benefiting career. Because where I'm at ain't it, and now it makes sense because it doesn't combine the two. I love y'all. I hope this made somebody think, at least, if nothing else. Have an amazing week. I might just pop up one day and say, hey, but until then, be well, stay safe, and really, really think about this.